Hi Plano Kindergarten. Today we're going to be starting a project that has to do with Texas wildflowers. So Texas is the huge state that we live in. You can find deserts, forests, rivers, mountains. So there's all sorts of different types of animals, and there's also a lot of different types of plants. And today we're going to be talking about wildflowers. Wildflowers mean the flowers that grow on their own. So as you're driving down the highway or the road, a lot of times you'll see these amazing Texas wildflowers growing on the side of the road. Nobody planted them there, but we still enjoy them. I'm going to show you a couple different ways that you can show your learning on this project and make some Texas wildflowers. If you're one of our virtual students, maybe you want to choose the way that you're going to create today. But as always, if your teacher has a different idea, that's totally fine. I'm just showing you some ideas that I came up with. Let's go ahead and talk about some of the important vocabulary and topics for this week, and also show you some of the different wildflowers that you might have seen before. Howdy y'all, and welcome to Texas. Texas is full of really crazy cool landscapes. So landscapes mean the land. So think trees, animals, and plants. You might have seen these very colorful wildflowers that grow in our state. There's all sorts and they're all very different and there's lots of varieties. We use our eyes to see color, and that's one of our 5 senses. Your job today is to make us some flowers and make us really feel like we're there. We're also going to take color to the next level. There are so many more colors than just red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple, because you can mix them and make new colors. So we're also going to be using line and shape. So remember, line is when you connect 2 points, and when you start putting lines together, you get shape. There's organic shapes like the petals, and then there's geometric shapes like these that you can recognize, like squares, rectangles, and our 3D forms. One thing I want you to pay attention to in this image is that, as you can see, things that are farther away end up being a little bit smaller, and things that are closer to you look a little bit bigger, even though we know that they're probably the same size. We can call this proportion. Pretty flowers. Let's go ahead and take a look at this one. This one's called a blue bonnet. This is actually our state flower. So this is one that Texas is known for. This is one of my favorites. It's called the Indian paintbrush. We call it an Indian paintbrush because it looks a little bit like a paintbrush that was dipped in red paint and then flipped upside down. This is called the Indian blanket flower. So the beautiful red, oranges, and yellows make us think of a woven blanket. This is called the Mexican hat flower. Some people say it looks a little bit like a Mexican sombrero. So like I said, I'm going to show you guys some different ways that you can complete this. Remember, your teacher may have their own idea for this. I'm just going to show you some different options as far as materials. I have some construction paper here that's in brown. You could totally take some construction paper crayons if you have some and do your flowers on construction paper. I like to use brown just because that can be like the ground and it gives it some background, and then you can always go back over it and add those greens. So here I'm doing a little blue bonnet, and you can add some grass, and so you can imagine that I can fill this up with all sorts of flowers. Another option that you could try is oil pastels. I really like oil pastels. They're a little bit messier, but I think that's part of the fun. You can draw your blue bonnets. Blue bonnets have little tiny petals, itty bitty. I'm gonna take a white pastel, just kind of go in there, and the cool thing about pastels, if you use it, it blends the colors. It does all the hard work for you. And sometimes if you look closely, you can see a little bit of yellow at the top of your blue bonnet. I love the Indian paintbrush, and then I'm gonna go over it with 2 colors. I'm gonna use some red, but if you look closely at Indian paintbrush, there's a little bit of orange in them sometimes too. Just to make these pop a little bit, I'm gonna go over it with some orange. I used to have a backyard full of Indian paintbrushes. I'm gonna try the Indian blanket. So I'm gonna just do the center of my flower, red, and this is kind of radial, so it means that the lines go out from the center. Might even go back and just kind of give it some orange, just to kind of make that red pop a little bit. And then on the edges of the flower is some more yellow. So I'm gonna go in and just do some yellow. Of course, give it a little stem, some leaves. There are so many more different wildflowers that you can find in Texas. Mexican hat flower has this really long cone that comes out the top, and then it has these yellowish, orangish little petals on the bottom, a little bit of red, just to make them pop. The top of the flower looks a little bit pokey, so I'm just gonna give it some dots with a black pastel. Oh, here's your job. I have 4 flowers here, but I can make this so much more interesting. I can make up some flowers, I can repeat my favorite ones, add grass, add leaves. You could add a sky if you want. This is your chance to show us all of the amazing skills that you've learned in kindergarten so far. So we're excited to see what you're going to create. Anyway, I'm just playing around and drawing. I added a little bit of a sky, and as you can see, as I'm adding more color, more grass, it's starting to turn from just a bunch of dirt to a more full landscape with plenty of color and flowers. And you can experiment. We gave you some ideas with the different Texas wildflowers, but maybe you want to create your own. Try out blending those colors together if you're going to use oil pastel. You can try blending if you have crayon. But like always, if these materials aren't available to you, just use what you have. Now, of course, you can use other methods of creating if you don't have oil pastels. Could you use crayon? You could use crayon if that's what you have. What about marker? Do you have any markers? That would work as well. Even with marker, it's still possible to put colors on top of each other and make something really interesting. Think about your shapes, your lines, leaves. Think about details. Is there dots in the middle of your flower so that the bees know where to go? Colored pencils also work for this project. Do your flowers have a curvy edge, or maybe it wobbles and has a wiggly line? Make this your own. You'll find ways to make all of these flowers unique. Maybe if your teacher or family is okay with it, you could even paint yours. We want you to have fun and try something new. Maybe that means blending colors. Maybe that means trying something hard. Maybe if a landscape isn't your style and you want to try something different, maybe you could do different methods of creating and then glue it down on a piece of paper so we can see all of the different ways that you've learned to create art. And you can glue them down and show us all the different ways that you created your flowers. And your teachers and I cannot wait to see what you come up with. Have a wonderful day.